Okay, this section is on formulas. Formulas are used in applications to figure out numbers. So when some numbers are known and you want to figure out another number, for example, you may know the number of items you're buying, you want to know the cost. You may know the length and width of a rectangle, you want to know the area or the perimeter. So you know some values and you want to find out other values. Basically, you're just substituting in numbers for the variables or letters and solving for the other one. So let's do an example. First example is going to be for a trapezoid. The area of a trapezoid is its base 1 plus its base 2 times its height divided by 2. So if we know these values for B1, B2, and H, we can find A. I might point out that these little numbers, these 1s and 2s here, are called subscripts. Subscripts are used to tell me that these two numbers could be different. We call them B sub 1 and B sub 2. B sub 1 and B sub 2 are both similar things in a trapezoid. They're called bases, but we have a bottom base and a top base, so we call them base 1 and base 2, or base sub 1 and base sub 2. Okay, to make this a proper example, we now need to give you some values. So let's suppose we know that base 1 is 8, we know that base 2 is 10, and we know that the height is 5. We want to find the A, the area. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace each of the known quantities in for the variable that represented it. So B1 is 8, B2 is 10, and H is 5. 2, of course, just stays 2. When I have a number at the end like that, remember that a parenthesis next to a number is times, so if we want to, we can write that little time symbol in. Okay, our order of operations, recall, tells us to do parentheses first. So 8 plus 10 is 18 times 5 over 2. And the multiplication is coming first, so let's do that first. What is 18 times 5? I'm going to do that in my calculator. 18 times 5 is 90, but you could do it by hand. 90 divided by 2 is 45. So my solution is 45. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do a second example. This one is for rectangles. The perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And let's suppose we know that the length is 5 and we know that the width is 3. We want to find the perimeter. So again, we're just going to replace the two variables that we have a value for with that value. So L is going to be 5, W is going to be 3. Order of operations says we do the multiplication first, so 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 times 3 is 6, so my answer is 16. Right, let's do another one. There's formulas for all kinds of things. So if you're going into business, there'll be formulas for that. If you're going into science, there's all kinds of formulas for that. If you're going to go into social sciences, there are formulas for statistics and stuff that you will use. So there's all kinds of formulas. If you're doing nursing, there's formulas for what drugs patients need and how to set machines and so forth. So there's all kinds of formulas for everything. Okay, let's look at Another example that we'll be using later in this course, it's for slope, and we use the symbol m equals y, remember that's sub 1, so sub 2, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 for x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And let's say that we know y sub 1 is 5, y sub 2 is 9, x sub 1 is 6, and x sub 2 is 8. So if we're going to find the m, we need to substitute these numbers in, or slang is plug them in for the variables. Okay, y2 is 9, so I'm going to have 9 minus y1 is 5 over x2, or x sub 2 is 8, x1, or properly x sub 1 is 6, 9 minus 5 is 4, and 8 minus 6 is 2. So when I divide 4 divided by 2, my answer is 2. Now sometimes the thing that we're looking for is not the number or the letter that's by itself on the left. For example, we could have this formula, which again is for rectangles, area equals length times width. And we could know that A is 36 and L is 9 equals 9. And we would like to find W. Sometimes it'll be this way. Notice we can work these formulas out and find these solutions even if we have no idea what the formulas are for. I've been stating some meaning for them, but we don't really need to know that meaning at this point to actually solve them. Okay, so I'm going to say that A is 36 and L is 9, but I don't know what W is. So now I have to solve the equation as we did earlier. To get W alone, I'm going to need to divide both sides by 9. So 4 is going to be equal to W. Okay, let's maybe do one more of those. And we won't mention what this formula is for. We'll just say that 4x plus 3y equals c, and that we know x is negative 3, and we know c is also negative 3. So let's find out what x is. Okay. So again, we're going to substitute. For the x, we'll put negative 3. For the y, I don't know what y is. Oh, that's what y is supposed to be the one I'm finding, right? So we're going to find y. Wouldn't be too hard to find x when I told you right above that x was negative 3. Okay, so we know x is negative 3 and c is negative 3. We'd like to find out what y is. Okay, so we don't know the y, and we know the c is negative 3. Okay, let's see, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So I'm simplifying the left side. And now I want to get the variable term alone. The variable term is 3y. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides. Of course, this is nothing. That leaves me 3y equals 9. I have one step left, and that's to get the y alone by dividing by its coefficient. Number 3 divided by 3 is 1. So my answer is y equals 3. So this is how we use formulas to find values, given that we know some of the quantities. Notice at this point we have to know all of them except for one, and we can solve for that remaining one. Okay, in the next section we'll look at what to do with Formulas similar to these, when we have a lot of them to solve, so we don't have to solve equations over and over, we can solve the formula.